Greetings, Soulswind here, and welcome to Let's Play Dragon Throne Battle of Red Cliffs, another discussion episode. In the last episode, we talked about the 6 resources in the game: corn, raw meat, wood, iron, food, and wine. Now it's finally the turn for gold. Get ready for a lot of numbers. Gold is more of a currency than a resource. It is primarily obtained via taxes, although as mentioned in the last episode, we can get gold from selling resources. However, in this episode, we're going to talk about taxes as a source of gold. We're also going to talk about city management. But before that, let me clarify that the county, which I often call the city, is where we have a gate and a courthouse and we build structures in. So whenever I refer to cities or counties, they're the same, the one with the courthouse and the ceremonial arch. Villages are located outside of cities, and they're slightly easier to understand, so we'll start with villages. Taxes go by a tax rate that is determined by us, the player. Every 2,500 citizens in a city or a village is charged a gold amount at that tax rate. So for example, if we have 3,750 citizens and we set a tax rate of 2, we will get 3 gold per month. It is obtained by taking 3,750, the number of population, divided by the population needed for one tax charge, 2,500, then multiplied by the tax rate, which is 2. That gives us a tax of 3 gold per month. Charging a high tax rate has a negative impact on the cities and villages. Conversely, charging a low tax rate has a positive impact. For villages, as seen on screen, the tax rate directly affects whether a village population grows or declines. A tax rate of 50 keeps the village population generally constant, even though actual numbers fluctuate above and below whatever population number it was when the tax rate was first set to 50. The highest village population, or rather the population cap for a village, is 40,000. Meanwhile, the minimum population in the village is 500. As you can see from the numbers, the fastest a village can grow is by approximately 700 population a month, that is setting the tax rate at 0. Meanwhile, the fastest decline of a population in a village is also 700 population a month at a tax rate of 100. Now, although we have a monthly population growth rate, the actual population number increases or decreases per game tick, which is about 2 seconds real time at high game speed and approximately 3 seconds real time at low game speed. The actual numbers per tick may fluctuate. For example, at tax of 0, the growth rate is 700 a month, approximate. However, per tick, it can be 106, 94, 100, and possibly other numbers close to 100 per tick that still total up to about 700 a month. As mentioned moments ago, tax rate of 50, the population still fluctuates. It looks something like 6, 0, minus 6 per tick, but eventually the population stays constant to the time when we first set the tax rate to 50. That's all for village taxes. Taxes from cities are a little more complicated, so let me try to explain them. Firstly, tax rate affects the morale, which can affect the rate of increase or decrease for the population in the city. Meanwhile, public security is even more convoluted. It affects how much the tax rate can be set before it begins to affect morale. So by that logic, the loyalty of a public security officer affects the public security level, which then influences the tax rate, which impacts the morale, which then changes the population's growth rate. And oh, the population in return also affects public security, but I'll talk about this later in this episode. The public security officer's loyalty is paramount to keeping every city's public security level as high as possible. If the city morale is above 50, the population of that city will increase, while morale below 50 will decrease population. At 50 morale, the population remains constant. The minimum population size of a city is 1,000 and the maximum is 80,000. This time round, for the city, the population number doesn't even seem to fluctuate like the population number would in a village set to 50 tax. That's because the tax directly causes population to change in the village, but the tax in a city causes morale to change, which then affects population. So how does a tax affect morale in a city? Assuming a consistently maintained 100 public security, these are the links between the tax rate and the morale. It is not an even distribution. To keep morale unchanged, the tax rate must be set in the range of 42 to 44 gold a month. Any higher and the morale will begin to decrease. Any lower, the morale will increase. So looking at the numbers, morale decreases more easily than it can increase, with a maximum morale decrease of 16 a month if our tax is at 99 or 100, while a maximum morale increase of only 11 a month if our tax rate is between 0 to 2. Again, assuming a consistently maintained 100 public security. So what if public security is not 100? Then these are the numbers. Now we assume that the city morale is at 100 and the city population is at 80,000. If the public security is at 55, near to half, then we can only afford a maximum tax rate of 24 gold before morale begins to decrease. That drops even further to a maximum tax rate of 5 gold before morale gets negatively impacted if the city's public security is at 11. Meanwhile, if public security is at 1, then our tax rate must be 0 to not affect morale. As soon as public security drops to 0, assuming that the tax still stays at 0, morale will still decrease at a rate of 1 morale a month. So, public security then. Now, we talk about how population affects public security. And in this scenario, our assumption is that morale stays at 100 and tax stays at 0. 100 loyalty hero is assigned to public security and the loyalty of that hero is consistently maintained at 100. In such a situation, the public security will increase by 5 to 8 a month. However, this increment or even decrement is affected by the officer's level and also affected by the population size of the city. It is better understood when public security officers are not assigned. So now let's unassign the public security officer. Without any public security officers maintaining public security, these are the numbers. The population size affects the rate of change of public security. At a lower population size below 30,000, public security drops by 1 to 3 per month. Population between 30,000 to 50,000 causes public security to drop by 3 to 5 a month. But if it consecutively dropped by 5 for several months, it might even increase in the next month. Meanwhile, population above 50,000 drops the public security level by 3 to 7. Again, it seemed to increase if the game thinks it's dropped too rapidly. All these numbers are assuming that the public security level is above 60. As the number drops below 60, the decrement is slightly more erratic and increases are more frequent. Then, when public security number drops below 50, it is observed that the public security numbers decrease seem to stabilize at 2 or 0 each month, although whether it's 2 or 0 is still random. And that goes on until public security number itself drops to 0. And as mentioned, as soon as public security drops to 0, morale of the city begins to decrease. It took me a really long time to understand the relation between morale, public security, tax rate, the presence and absence of a public security officer, its level, its loyalty, and its own morale, and even so, they're all based on observations, as this is a very old game and I couldn't find more information on these things. So I apologize if my understanding is not accurate enough or perhaps even entirely wrong. At least based on observation and repeated but non-exhaustive data sampling, that's what I've noticed to be happening in the game. Finally, we're done with the numbers. Now let's end the episode with something lighter. We go into city management and defense. We have a city gate and indestructible walls. Soldiers can be garrisoned into city gates to fire arrows out of it. That's true even for melee units. A total of 23 units can be garrisoned. Crossbowmen garrisoned in the gate will use their fire arrows. The gates can be kept open by any friendly unit tasked to leave or enter, leading to comical situations where the gate is kept open by our units but the enemies refuse to enter, likely because the AI got confused. We can also choose to lock the gates and let our gates or other defenders stationed around the walls handle the attackers. So there's a singular entry point into the city gate. That can be blocked by any unit standing at that spot, leading to frustrating situations where units tasked to garrison get stuck outside of the gate garrison, causing a reduction in gate defense while getting themselves killed. Other than the gate, if enemies have ladders, the ladders can lean on the walls and allow enemy foot soldiers to scale the walls, making it quite useful to post several units along the walls for defense. Otherwise, if the enemy makes use of malefic kites, they can also get past the walls. Meanwhile, rivers can lead directly into the city behind the walls. So, avoid leaving a city fully undefended, but in a worst case scenario, the enemy might be distracted and not attack the courthouse, whose capture can immediately turn the city over to the enemy. To capture a courthouse, its health has to be reduced to 1000, and any unit can walk into the center of the courthouse to interact with it. The courthouse is repairable though, so if there's an overwhelming force attacking our city's courthouse, assigning a few repairers to the courthouse is important in delaying the capture. Also something quirky. Even if the courthouse is at 1000 health, incoming attacks already in the attack queue can still damage it further. Nevertheless, the courthouse cannot be destroyed. While it's quite difficult to apply more damage on the courthouse after it goes below 1000, even if we use the control key, that can still be done using siege equipment such as the Thunder Wagon. Bring multiple Thunder Wagons, maybe 10 or more, hold on to the control key, which will change the cursor to an attack cursor, keep clicking on the courthouse. We'll notice that the minimum HP that the courthouse can go to is 20. Alright, this has been a heavy episode discussing about gold, taxes, and city management in Dragon Throne Battle of Red Cliffs. I hope you found these information useful. Let me know in the comments below if I've missed out anything. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I have for now. Have a nice day.